From the beginning, you know the end. This was the tagline for Halo Reach, and it told us everything about Bungie's intent for the game back when it was announced in E3 2009. Now, 10 years later, Halo Reach is finally coming to PC and Xbox One, with almost every other Halo shooter to follow on PC. With that will certainly come an influx of new fans, so with that in mind, today we'll start a primer series to set expectations for new fans and, as this is a lore channel, invite them to dive into the rich and vast canon that Halo has to offer. Expect a number of videos on various Reach-related topics in the weeks to come, but for today we ask the simple question, what is Halo Reach? Though the first to be released on the PC port of the Master Chief Collection, Halo Reach was the final Halo game from Bungie and a prequel to the trilogy they had at the time recently completed. Reach tells the story of the fall of the planet Reach, hence the tagline, the UNSC's biggest military powerhouse second only to Earth. Taking some inspiration from the novel Halo: The Fall of Reach, a book that released prior to Halo CE back in 2001, a book that could be called the foundational text for Halo lore, Halo Reach was Bungie's take on the planet's fall. Told from the perspective of Noble Team, a group of mostly Spartan 3s, Halo Reach takes players from first contact with a Covenant scouting patrol on July 24, 2552, all the way to the planet's fall more than a month later. You play as Noble 6, a new member of Noble Team, called in to replace another Spartan 3 who had died on a mission just months ago. Fun fact, this previous Noble 6's death was actually depicted in the Halo Reach live-action trailer Deliver Hope. In it, we see Spartan Tom A293 sacrifice himself when he delivers a Havoc tactical nuke into the heart of a Covenant CCS-class battlecruiser over the colony world of Fumiral. This trailer also gives a background for why Kat has a mechanical arm in Halo Reach, as her arm was severely damaged by a Banshee bomb in that same trailer. But back on topic, as Spartan B312, a Spartan previously known for making entire militia groups disappear, you fight against the growing Covenant invasion on Reach while watching your teammates die around you until you sacrifice yourself to ensure humanity has a future, even as the world around you burns. Halo Reach was a major step up from previous Halo titles for Bungie in a number of ways. In the original trilogy, players took on the role of Master Chief Petty Officer John 117, or the Master Chief, said to be the last Spartan 2. Halo Reach shows us a time when there were numerous Spartans running around and shows a different class of Spartan in the Spartan 3s, although it's important to note Noble 4 George 052 is in fact a Spartan 2 just like the Master Chief. Anyway, Noble 6's persona is very much meant to evoke the Master Chief, but unlike him, Noble 6 is highly customizable. Halo has always been known for letting players customize the look of their multiplayer Spartans, but Halo Reach took this to a new level, allowing player to carry over their custom Spartans into the campaign as well. Noble 6 can be male or female and look just about any way the player wants. To this day, no Halo game has come close to this level of personal player investment. As previously stated, the Halo Reach campaign takes a lot of influence from Halo's lore, notably the Fall of Reach, but also to lesser degrees First Strike and Ghosts of Onyx, the latter of which introduced Spartan 3s to the lore. However, Bungie didn't want to be confined by the works of others, and when crafting Halo Reach, they decided to largely tell their own story. As a result, Halo Reach's story effectively acted as a retcon of the books that inspired it. In the years since, however, 343 has made numerous efforts to make Halo Reach and Halo: The Fall of Reach work together almost seamlessly. Not perfectly, but it works. Setting aside the lore though, Halo Reach is a harrowing tragedy and an extremely satisfying campaign. The levels are big and diverse, probably the most diverse Halo had been at that point. The characters of Noble Team, while lacking depth, do feel real. Given that Bungie only had one game to develop these characters, they ended up doing a lot with only a little. At the end of the day, Halo Reach's campaign is a lot of fun and can provide hours of replayability either by yourself or with up to 4 friends in co-op. Halo 3's multiplayer was an absolute juggernaut from 2007 to 2010, and with Halo Reach being, quote,
the definitive Halo made by the people who created Halo,
it was expected to follow in Halo 3's footsteps. It did in some ways, but in others, it was the beginning of what would be several years of disappointments. Being a prequel to Halo CE, Halo Reach in many ways returned to a more CE-style game, with the inclusion of both shields and non-regenerating health, something that had disappeared after Halo CE. As a result, health packs would also make a return. Dual wielding was also removed, though this was equally a result of sandbox balancing as it was to recapture the magic of Halo CE. The biggest change, however, was the evolution of Halo 3's equipment into the form of armor abilities. Where equipment were single-use items found on maps, Spartans would spawn with armor abilities, or AAs, which could be used for a limited time before needing to cool off and recharge. As I recall at the time, AAs were met with much intrigue and anticipation when announced, at least on Bungie's forums, but in the final game they would infamously become the bane of classic Halo fans. Sprint and possibly evade made maps bigger, which in turn made getting around maps without sprint a hassle to say the least. Jetpack destroyed vertical map control, especially since it allowed players to shoot while flying, whereas sprint, evade, and armor lock would keep players from using their weapons while the AA was active. And speaking of, there's of course Armor Lock, perhaps the most infamous of Reach's AAs. Armor Lock allowed players to, lock up their armor, temporarily becoming invincible. This would result in combat coming to a screeching halt, as the enemy player could only wait for the Armor Lock user to unlock, as it were. Armor Locked players could not be stuck by plasma grenades, and if already stuck, Armor Lock would de-stick the grenade. The AA could also be used in such a way where a player could quickly lock up, wait for an enemy to get close, unlock, causing an EMP effect, then finish the enemy with a melee. It may not sound like anything serious if you're unfamiliar with Halo Reach, but it was probably the biggest point of contention among fans back in the day, second only to AAs as a whole. Another major change met with mixed reception was the addition of Bloom. Bloom is the effect of having bullets become less accurate the faster you shoot. The intent was to reward players for pacing their shots, but the randomness of where bullets would go as Bloom increased rarely played out as intended. Over time, AAs and Bloom would be addressed by 343 Industries, who took over as curators for Halo Reach in 2011. Initially, they released a title update which reduced Bloom on precision weapons by 85%, making for a more consistent experience, and altered certain armor abilities, notably Armor Lock. After the title update, Armor Lock's power meter could be reduced by damage from an enemy player. This meant that if a player locked up, the enemy could throw grenades or just shoot the locked player to unlock them faster. 343 would also release a Zero Bloom game variant in which all Bloom on precision weapons was removed. This variation was heavily favored by the competitive community. Like with any Halo game, Halo Reach saw numerous game types return while introducing or reintroducing several new ones. Notably, these would include Race, Headhunter, and Invasion. Invasion was the big new game type for Halo Reach, and certainly something fans were looking forward to. In Invasion, one team would be comprised of Spartans while the other was comprised of elites. One team would be attacking while the other was defending. Attackers would try to gain ground, eventually planting a bomb or stealing a core or completing some other objective. As the attackers pushed forward, more loadouts, another new feature for Halo Reach, became available to both sides. More advanced loadouts would feature more armor abilities and more powerful weapons. Invasion was the absolute height of Reach's multiplayer, utilizing all of Reach's new additions to their fullest. Despite only 2 dedicated maps at launch with a third DLC map later on, there were plenty of Invasion maps to be played, and this was all thanks to a major overhaul to another of Halo's core features. Forge was introduced as a map editor in Halo 3, meant to simply allow players to customize existing maps. Later DLC would provide Forge palettes, maps that could be completely cleared out, allowing people to create their own maps from scratch, more or less. However, I don't think anyone could have predicted what would come as an entire community exploded into being. So for their final hoorah, Bungie stepped up the game for Forge, implementing numerous new tools and features to make creating maps easier than ever. And to top it off, they included Forge World, the largest map ever created at the time. Basically 5 Forge palettes in one, fans could do and make just about anything they could imagine. To really dive into Forge would take far too long to do it real justice. If you want to see what Forge is capable of and dive into it, I'd recommend checking out channels like Forge Labs and Duquesne23 or just searching Halo Reach Forge on YouTube. For as big as Halo 3's Forge was in its time, Reach was even bigger, especially with the emerging prominence of YouTube. A really good series to check out would be Forge with Pete, a series 343 would feature on their Waypoint Xbox app and website back in the day, though it's now easily findable on YouTube. Needless to say, Forge was an amazing tool that added hours of replayability to Halo Reach. Now, I would be remiss to mention what is probably the key to Halo's longevity in any iteration: custom games. Like with multiplayer and Forge, custom games were expanded upon, allowing, especially in conjunction with Forge, the creation of insane game types and maps. I'm not going to spend too much time here, as some of it would kind of just be repeating stuff that's already been said, so suffice it to say, I have fond memories of nights spent with friends online, hours passing by without notice as we played game after game. These days, a number of custom game types can always be found in the Action Sack playlist in the Master Chief Collection, and when it releases, I can't wait to see some Halo Reach classics added to it. Introduced in Halo 3 ODST, Firefight was Halo's take on the popular at the time Horde mode. Not content to simply copy a trend, Bungie's take was a unique setup that few games managed to capture, at least in my opinion. There would be 5 waves of enemies that made up a round. Each round would see the addition of a skull, a difficulty multiplier. 3 rounds made up a set, and at the end of each set, a new skull would activated. Unlike round skulls, which reset at the start of a new set, set skulls would stay on permanently for as long as the game continued. This was the source of the challenge and fun of Firefight. For Halo Reach, Bungie added a number of custom options, from player traits and loadouts to the composition of each wave and custom skulls, to name a few things. There was also a specific mode called Firefight Versus, in which 2 players would play as elites, leading Covenant forces against a pair of enemy Spartans. Firefight in Reach was a step up in many ways from ODST, though, for some, myself included, the challenge we once enjoyed with ODST was watered down in Halo Reach. Still, I can't say that the customization wasn't fun or useful, especially for a community that grew around the final feature we'll talk about today. If you've ever seen a video game trailer, you'll probably recall moments where the camera will leave its default in-game position, allowing for sweeping shots of levels or different angles while a character runs through said level. In Halo 3, Bungie included a feature that allowed the consumer to utilize a free cam within a previously played campaign or multiplayer game. This was simply called Theater. Halo had been a bastion for console-based machinima, short for machine cinema, skits animated using video game footage since Halo CE, notably thanks to the series Red vs. Blue. With Theater, machinima was getting easier than ever to create, and while it probably peaked during the latter days of Halo 3, machinimating in Halo Reach was no less appealing. Like with other features, Theater saw its share of improvements, such as the ability to skip back in campaign footage. In Halo 3, you could only go forward, and if you missed something you wanted to see, you had to start the film over. More than just for machinima though, Theater allowed players to take screenshots and create custom-length clips that could be shared with others. This resulted in numerous hilarious clips of game failures, but more than that, Forge art. People could create amazing pictures using Forge items and filters, take a screenshot of that in Theater, and share them around. This created its own dedicated community in Halo 3 that continued into Halo Reach and even continues to this day. And so that is a general overview of Halo Reach, which, even if I spent more time on, I probably couldn't do the game proper justice. Reach is a vast experience that you can sink hours into, be that the full offering or specific parts of it. For those interested in the lore, I'd like to close out by highlighting some specific media that connects to Halo Reach. Not necessarily required reading, but stuff that can enhance your experience. First, of course, is Halo: The Fall of Reach. As said at the start of this video, The Fall of Reach is practically the foundation of Halo's fiction, telling the backstory of the Master Chief and Cortana and leading straight up to Halo CE. Though as mentioned before, it has some notable differences from Halo Reach, it's still a great book. Next is Halo Ghosts of Onyx. The 4th Halo novel released, this book probably ties more into Halo 2 than Halo Reach, but it does introduce us to the Spartan 3 program. And again, it's a great read. After that, we have Halo Contact Harvest by Halo writer Joseph Staten. Contact Harvest tells the story of first contact between humanity and the Covenant and the reasons for the 27 years of war to follow. And from there, we have the marketing surrounding Halo Reach. The first of these materials are a series of posts on Bungie.net. These include some background on the planet Reach itself and its military assets, profiles on each member of Noble Team, information on the various weapons and equipment of Halo Reach, and a communique explaining the existence of Noble Team. Second are Halo Reach's trailers, which collectively make up the Remember Reach campaign. First among these was a series of web films titled Patrol, Spaceport, and New Life. These various shorts showed life on Reach from various perspectives the day before the game begins. In addition, there were two larger trailers. The first was Birth of a Spartan, which showed the backstory of Noble Team's leader Carter A259. The second was Deliver Hope, which depicted the sacrifice of the previous Noble Six. Wrapping things up, at least for now, is the personal journal of Dr. Catherine Halsey, the creator of the Spartan 2 program, who makes her first game appearance in Halo Reach. The journal was included in the limited and legendary editions of Halo Reach and goes a long way of making the game's events fit with those told in Halo The Fall of Reach. On top of that, it's a wealth of lore knowledge with fantastic illustrations. Copies are often enough found on eBay, but the only other way to read the journal is a SlideShare presentation online, which I've linked to below. I'm really hoping that 343 will release an official PDF of Halsey's journal before Reach drops though, as it's an invaluable resource and I hate promoting unofficial stuff. If they do release something official, the link below will change to reflect that. And that's it for our introduction to Halo Reach. For those new to the franchise, I hope this helped. If you're interested in learning more, subscribe and stay tuned for Halo Reach centric videos in the weeks to come. Until then, this has been Halo Canon. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing, and if you really love me, hit that notification bell and leave a thumbs up. These both really help out the channel. I wouldn't be where I am now without your views and support, so once again, thank you. Keep on being awesome, Canonites.